The Tennessee Titans, a franchise that I thought was on the verge of finally breaking through. They had one of the most powerful running games of all time, along with a very decent receiving core, and I thought Ryan Tannehill was finally getting the revitalization he needed. But now there's a big question mark on Tennessee. What is their team like now? Are they still the same Tennessee Titans that we once knew? I don't think so, and that's very scary. Now, what does that mean for fantasy football? Is this team even capable of producing fantasy numbers it once produced? It's time we take a look. Hello everyone, my name is Aaron and this is the Game Day Hour. Welcome back to the Fantasy Football Team Review. In this series, we take a look at each and every 32 NFL franchises and see what they offer for fantasy football. Here we analyze a team's quarterback, running back, wide receiver 1 and 2, tight end, and starting kicker. Our goal is to analyze last season and see what they offer for fantasy football this season, if they're worth drafting, when, and where. Today, we take a look at the Tennessee Titans. Ryan Tannehill, Tennessee Titans quarterback. So one of the bigger questions, similar to the Indianapolis Colts, is the quarterback position. At the moment, Ryan Tannehill still remains as the starter, but keep in mind, they have two quarterbacks right behind him. So it's good that we take a look at his stats right now because chances are he may not be here for the whole season. So this is his stats. He played 12 games last year due to injury. In those 12 games, he had 212 completions, which was 24th, along with 325 attempts, which was 26th. So that's actually pretty good. You know me, I like to see a higher completion than attempt percentage. And that's 65.2%, which is tied for 17th. He had 2,536 passing yards, which was 22nd. 13 touchdowns, that's tied for 26th, along with 6 interceptions, that's tied for 83rd. That gave him a total of 179 total fantasy points, which was 27th. In other words, in the time he did play, he still played up to his good standards, but he also doesn't have a very powerful receiving core around him, just an amazing running back. And unfortunately, he's not on my top 25 list. Therefore, he is not somebody I would draft. It's because there's so many question marks about the quarterback position there. And we don't know where the future is going. But it doesn't seem like it's going to be Ryan Tannehill for long. And because of that, of course, he's not somebody in the late rounds I would draft. He may be a good pickup in like mid-season free agency. But that's about it. If he had a better receiving core, if they kept AJ Brown, which I still don't understand that trade, if they were to have kept him, they probably would have had a better chance at making a further playoff run. I don't think they're going to do that this year, and it would be a better chance for him to be in the top 25 among all the quarterbacks I have ranked. So unfortunately, I don't think he is a draftable guy at this point, but maybe he'll prove me wrong for a few more seasons. Derrick Henry, Tennessee Titans running back. However, there is a guy you can draft on that team, and that is Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, or King Henry, depending on how you want to call him, he is one of the most physical running backs in the entire league, the biggest in my opinion, and one of the most efficient runners in the entire NFL right now. So if you want to just understand how great he is, take a look at these stats. These stats that I'm about to show you, he has produced multiple times. He played 16 games last year, and in those 16 games, he had 349 carries. That was first. Along with 1,538 rushing yards, that was second, and 13 touchdowns, that was tied for second. That gave him 293 total fantasy points, which was fourth among all running backs. These are some amazing stats that you definitely want this guy on your team. The only question mark behind him is that, are you a guy that is skeptical of a balanced offense? What I mean by that is, like, do you trust a running back who also has a pretty good receiving core on that same team? Or do you think that he will be a bell cow, but he won't get a lot of production because everybody knows to stop the run because the receiving core is just not that great? But even with those question marks in play, he is still somebody I would highly recommend to draft. On my board, I have him as the 5th ranked running back behind, and you already know that Taylor, Chubb, and McCaffrey there, but I also am going to add Barkley there. And because of that, he's 5th on my list, but he's still a running back 1. There's no question about that. So in the early rounds, we're talking round 1, maybe round 2, but that's just a question mark for me. Depending on where you draft him, you have to play with that idea that everybody knows Tennessee will be a run-heavy team. So can you stop the run, and do you care a lot about the passing game? Those are question marks you're going to have to ask when drafting Derrick Henry, but I think that if he's still on the board by the time you get to the late round 1s, or maybe even early round 2s, you should definitely pick him up. You're going to need running backs. My strategy requires that I get a skill position player prior to getting a quarterback, which is why you'll never really see me get a Patrick Mahomes or a Josh Allen or maybe even Jalen Hurts or just any of the top quarterbacks, because I'm not going for quarterbacks early. I'm going for position players. So, yeah, that's all I have to say about Derrick Henry, but question marks about, whether he's the right person to draft because of the Titans offense, or if he's just a must draft. But either way, he's round 1 and 2 as a running back 1. Treylon Burks, Tennessee Titans wide receiver 1. Now, moving on to another receiving core that I'm not saying I'm not interested in, but I think needs a lot more production. And this receiver I'm going to talk about got drafted by the Tennessee Titans after they traded AJ Brown. So he's supposed to be the next AJ Brown, apparently. That would be Treylon Burks. Now, I still don't understand his game, but I guess we can see his stats. In his rookie year, he played 16 games, and he had 33 receptions, which was tied for 131st. He had 444 receiving yards, that was tied for 99th, and he only had 1 touchdown, that's tied for 168th. That is 88 total fantasy points, that was 79th. He wasn't even the best receiver last year. He was the number 2 behind Robert Woods before he went to the Texans. But being drafted after a trade that required AJ Brown leaving, you need to have more stat production, because AJ Brown is now one of the top wide receivers in the entire league. And because of all of this, I am a little skeptical, just a tiny bit skeptical of Treylon. And even though he's in my top 50, he's probably somebody I wouldn't draft because he's at 44, which is out of my top 40. So at best, he's probably a wide receiver 4 or a top free agency pickup. But I don't see him really getting drafted by the Titans. Now, maybe if they switch quarterbacks and he starts to go off with the new quarterback system, whichever that would be, then maybe. But at the same time, it's still a big question mark. I think Tennessee's receiving core is very underwhelming, and Treylon Burks, he needs to have a more productive year. By production, I would need to see him somewhere in the 50 receptions, maybe 700 receiving yards, and you need to have more touchdowns, of course, especially if you want to help Derrick Henry still continue to have that dominance so they don't go rush tack heavy. You need to have stats going up, but at the moment, he's somebody I probably would not draft. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, Tennessee Titans wide receiver 2. And the second part to this receiving core is Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. Again, somebody else who I'm not 100% excited about, but maybe that's good. Let's see his stats. He played 16 games last year. He had 25 receptions, which was tied for 167, so that's less. 397 receiving yards, that's 119th, along with 3 touchdowns. Okay, so he has more touchdowns, that's nice. Which would give him 78 total fantasy points, that's 88th, lower than Treylon Burks. Yeah, this receiving core for Tennessee is pretty underwhelming. It doesn't mean that they can't get better, but you need to get better quickly. But because of these stats, again, he's somebody I probably would not draft. As a matter of fact, he's not even on my top 50 list. So again, like the Colts and the Texans, aside from Michael Pittman, these receivers need some help. They need to get better, especially for their respective quarterbacks or respective future quarterbacks. They need to play better. but it can happen. I just don't see Nick being a draftable guy. Maybe a free agency pickup if he starts to go off. I mean, we've had some teams that were able to do that last year. Washington had multiple receivers that were able to be great free agency pickups, aside from, of course, Terry, who was always on a roster. But aside from that, yeah, it's a Tennessee Titans receiving core. It's not that impressive. Chigozie Okonkwo, Tennessee Titans tight end. Not gonna lie, it took me a little bit to pronounce this guy's name, but I think I got it right. Chigozie Okonkwo. I was gonna call him Okonkwo from now on. He is the tight end for Tennessee, and a lot of people have high remarks for this guy, that he's going to become a big tight end soon. And if that's the case, that's good news for whoever's going to be playing quarterback in the next few years. But let's see his stats from last year. He played 17 games last year. In those 17 games, he had 32 receptions, which was tied for 137th. He had 450 receiving yards, that's 97th. 3 touchdowns, that's tied for 72nd. And he had 92 total fantasy points, which was tied for 23rd. I just noticed that not one receiver we've talked about had over 100 points. Ouch. But for a tight end, that's really good to have 92. I mean, he had more than all the other receivers, so he was a valuable asset to the team. However, he is in the top 25, but he's right at 25. Because of that, I cannot really draft him. He's probably a top free agency pick, but chances are he's going to be going up. He's going to be going up in the rankings, maybe even this year, and potentially we'll see him in the top 20 to where he becomes a draftable guy, a tight end too, potentially. But other than that, he's in progress, but he's the closest to getting where he needs to be for fantasy purposes, which is good for Tennessee. Caleb Shudak, Tennessee Titans kicker. Lastly, we have the kicker Caleb Shudak, and he doesn't have a lot of stats to look at because he only played one game last year. So let's take a look at his stats. In that one game, he went 3 for 4 made an attempted field goal at 75%. He was 100% from extra point percentage. He had a long of 38 and only 10 points. And he had a fantasy game that he had 10 points in, which is, for a single game, that's pretty good. I like the double-digit statistics, good from extra point percentage. He made a lot of field goals, but he didn't make a lot of long ones, so you don't know like the extent of his long range. And because he doesn't have a lot of stats on him, he is not somebody who is ranked, nor would I draft on my team. But he is somebody I might keep an eye on to see if in a full season what his stats are going to look like. So it'll be a little easier to see what the future holds for him after this season, but not this season. I wouldn't draft him. So yeah, it's short stats, but they're pretty promising for the most part. Thank you for watching today's episode. If you enjoy, please leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe. Follow me on all my social medias, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And the next video will be the last of the AFC South, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I am also thinking of other video ideas once we get closer to the NFL season, like a tier list for both the offenses and the defense of each NFL team. I'm looking forward to doing something like that. I think that'd be very fun. And yeah, that is all I have for today. I hope you guys have a great day. Take care, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace out. Thank you for today's episode, and if you enjoyed, please leave a comment. Thank you for today's episode, and if you enjoyed this video, please leave a Come on. Thank you for today's episode. No. Thank you for watching today's